everybody, welcome back to Pushing Pixels. I'm your host, Sam Mestis. Today we're going to do something fun. We're going to pay homage to Burt Monroy. He's a great Photoshop artist. And we're going to do one of his, kind of an older tutorial. It's a great example on how to build 3D elements and not jump into the 3D aspects, but do it in 2D. So we're just going to make a letter. And if you ever get a chance, go to burtmonroy.com and check out Burt's work. He is amazing. So let's pay him some respect. I have a project here, and just so we're clear, the project is 800 by 1000 pixels at 100 DPI. So not too bad. And in this project, I have nothing on any layers, but I do have this work path, and it's the letter S. And we're going to build this sort of 3D signage, something like maybe you would see on the side of a building or inside of a workspace or a bar, something kind of cool. But we're just going to build one letter, and that is the letter S. So I've typed out the letter S, and I've converted it to a path, and that's how we'll do it. Now, when you're working with paths, you can still treat paths like objects. So before I do that, I forgot to turn on my my visualize keystrokes so you can see what keys I'm hitting as I go through this. There we go. That's on now. Okay, so back to paths. We can take these paths, close that, and we can free transform them and reshape them. So I kind of want to make it look like I'm standing underneath this letter S a little bit and sort of looking up at it. So I'm going to free transform, Command T, and that gets me my free transform handles. And on the inside, I'm going to right click to pull up the free transform options and get distort. And I'm just going to grab this corner at the bottom here and stretch it out just a little bit. And the bottom too, and I'm not going to go too crazy. I just want it to look a little bit stretched out, so we're kind of looking up at it. That is actually pretty good. I'm going to commit to this by hitting return, or if you want, you can also hit that check mark right there. But I'm just going to hit return, and there you go. And I need a couple more versions of this S, so I'm actually going to pick the the path selection tool. That's this guy right here with the black arrow. And I'm going to click on this and activate the path. And then I'm going to hold down my Alt key. And I'm going to grab the path and I'm going to drag a copy of it. I'm just going to drag it down and to the right just a little bit. I kind of want to keep the center section lined up so it doesn't get too weird. So I'm dragging down to the right. And like I said, again, I want to keep those center sections pretty close to one another. All right. And that's not too bad, I don't think. All right, I want to fix this corner, though, real quick, because I do want the corner right down here to line up. So I'm going to go over here to the Direct Selection tool. And this acts just like it does in Illustrator. It lets you grab these points and move them. So I'm going to grab that bottom point there, and I'm just going to drag it up so it lines up over the corner there a little bit. I'm going to stretch this out just a little bit, too, so it doesn't look as ridiculous. And there you go. Not too bad. All right, so I got two paths now. I need one final third path because I need to close off this end of this S a little bit. And since we're making it sort of look 3D, it's going to have some volume. It's going to be thick. So I'm going to use the pen tool, and I am going to pick 5 points. You can see my keys right there. That's what I hit, P for pen. And I'm just going to pick 4 points. I'm going to make, or 5 points. I'm going to make kind of a rectangle. So I'm going to pick one in there and do it just like that. Now I'm going to move it. It's easier to do it this way and then move the points. So I'm going to go back to my direct selection tool, and I'm going to grab the corner here, and I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. And I'm going to grab each corner and line them up as best I can. We'll probably have to remove this one a little bit again, but we'll come back to that later. I kept this in there because I'm going to need a little bit of overlap so there's not a break between that, and you'll see why when we're done filling these things up. All right, so I have 3 paths. The front of it, the side of it, and then this side right here. Okay, let me zoom extents. There we go. All right, now we're going to fill these up with colors. So I'm going to go to my layers. I'm going to start a new layer, and I'm going to call that layer front. It's a good idea to name your layers. Go back to my paths. Over here, my color picker, I'm going to pick a very medium gray. It's right on the very left side of the color picker, right in the middle, sort of a medium gray. That's not too bad. Maybe a little bit darker. How about a little bit darker? Let's do medium gray. Let's do a medium gray. All right, there we go. So I got my medium gray selected. I got my path selected. I'm going to go now and just pick a path, my very first one that we started with, That's the front. And if you go to this little color icon button down here, this circle that's completely filled up, that's the fill path button. Fill path with foreground color is what it's going to do. So if I click on that, there we go. It fills my letter S on my layer. That's not too bad. All right, now let's do the sides here a little bit. So I'm going to get a new layer underneath my front, and I'm going to call that side, just so I know. And let's go back to my paths, and let's pick a different gray. Let's pick a lighter gray, somewhere up in here maybe. All right, and let's pick that path, the second path. Let me go to the path selection tool. Sorry about that. There we go. The one behind, and we're going to fill that with that light gray we just selected, right? So let's go to the fill button down here again. It's right at the very bottom. It's a circle that's filled. It's a solid circle. And there you go. I'm going to fill that. Awesome. We have one more path to fill, and that's this little tiny one right here. So I'm going to select that. And let's maybe pick a little bit darker gray, somewhere down here maybe. All right. All right, we got our path selected, and we need to put a new layer on it. And I'm going to put it between my front and my side. And I'm going to call that, I'm just going to call that square, since it's kind of a tiny little square. If I can learn how to type, that'd be great. There we go. All right, so with that square layer there active, I'm going to go back to my paths, and I'm going to fill with that darker gray we picked. And there you go, and that's really it. All done. Looks pretty good. Not bad already. It's looking pretty good already. All right, so we need to, the bulk of the hard work is done now. All we have to do now is sort of start shining this thing up. Oh, you know what? Let's do one more thing. At the very top here, let's put a new layer, and let's call that flange, F-L-A-N-G-E. That's at the very top right there. Make sure that layer's selected. And we're kind of going to go back to a lighter gray, sort of in between the medium and the pure white, somewhere in there. All right, let's pick that. And we're going to stroke the front end of this. We're going to give it a bit of a flange. So we need a brush for that. So let's go to our brush tool. I hit B. That'll get you to brush. And let's just pick a generic old run-of-the-mill hard edge round brush. And set the size to 9. And if I draw with it, you see what it's going to look like. That's what size the 9 brush looks like. Let me undo there. So that's it. That's what a 9 brush looks like. With our flange layer now selected and our brush has been selected, let's go back to paths. And I'm going to go back to the direct path selection tool, and we're going to pick that guy. We got to select that. There we go. We're going to pick that path again, our very first path. And instead of filling it this time, we're going to stroke the path with the brush we made. All right? This button right here, it's the empty circle button. This one's for fill. This one's for stroke. And if you hover over it, it says stroke with brush. And since we've already set up our brush, we know what it's going to look like. And if I click that, my path is selected. I'm going to click that stroke button down here, and it is going to stroke that path. I'm going to do it again for you. Select that guy one more time. Oops, I've got my layer selected. There it is. And stroke, and watch as it strokes this path with my 9-inch brush, or my 9-pixel brush. There you go. Not too bad. Looks pretty good. All right, so there we go. We have 4 layers. We have the flange. We have the front. We have that little square up there, this guy. And then we have the back. So let's start having some fun, all right? On the side one, this guy right here, we need to sort of show highlights and shadow. So assuming the light is coming up from up here this direction, that's what we're going to assume. We're going to assume it's downlit from the top left, up here, that way. We're going to do some highlights, and this is where we're going to do some dodging and burning. So select your side layer right over here, and let's go to burn. Now since this thing is being lit from up here, just for the sake of argument, I'm going to just make this is where the light is shining down. Go back to my side. I'm going to select my burn tool, which is kind of in the middle. It's underneath that finger right there. I can select burn. I'm going to leave the exposure to 50. That's a little hot the way I had it. I'm going to set it to mid-tone. And with I'm going to size my brush up a little bit here. There we go. That's a little bit too big. Still a little bit too big. Where's my brush size? Interesting. See why that's not resizing. There it goes. Okay, so with a medium-sized brush, assuming the light's coming down this way, a lot of this stuff in here is going to be in shadow. For example, this little area right here is going to be in shadow. So I'm just going to burn that a little bit. Maybe right here there's some shadowing, right? Right along here. Along the bottom here. You can see why I didn't do a very good job fixing that, but you get the idea. Right? So there's that. All right, and in here, we're going to treat those as highlights. So if you go to now, you go to your dodge tool, and I'm going to put the exposure to 50 again, and size up a little bit. There we go. And I'm going to brighten up these little sections real quick, and now you can see sort of how this is working out. We're getting a nice little highlight deal and some shadowing, and it looks pretty cool. The second thing we're going to do is let's do that flange, kind of the same thing. I'm going to randomly burn this thing. Oh, wrong layer. There we go. I'm going to randomly burn it in some spots. Okay. Just kind of randomly, and then I'm also going to randomly dodge it in some spots. Give it some random highlights and lowlights. And that looks pretty good, actually. All right, on the inside, we kind of tried to do this in class, but we didn't, but I'll try it here. If you want to do it, you can. If not, you can stop right here and then go right to, before we even do that, let's do it the reverse way. Let's go to our side layer right here. I'm going to turn on my brick layer that I had there. And it doesn't look really convincing at all. It looks flat against a photograph of a brick. So let's fix that. First thing we're going to do is I'm going to double click on that side layer, and I am going to put an outer glow on it. And you can already see it's helping sort of set it off against that wall. And in this case, I have it set to multiply. Black is my color. And let's see kind of what I can come up with here in regards to, I'm going to try to keep this pretty subtle. I don't want it to get too crazy. I mean, if I turn it off, you can see what happens. So let's keep it. I want it to look like it's up against the wall, but not too much. So my opacity is at 82. Spread is 7. Maybe you want to crank that up just a little bit. Let's say spread at 20. And my size at 18. That's not too bad, right? It looks pretty good there. You can see what's happening. All right. Let's drop a shadow too. So let's click our drop shadow there. And since the light is coming from up here going down, that's kind of how we'd like it. So we need to be, I'm actually just going to grab it inside the document here a little bit. And it's not too far off the wall. So I don't want it to go too far away. I mean, it could be that far and that would be ridiculous. So let's just assume it's hanging off the wall an inch or two. And I'm just going to drag my shadow over. And I'm literally just reaching into the document here and dragging my shadow a little bit. What's my drop shadow set at? 18. 18 for size. That's not too bad. And distance is 19, 20. One of those will work pretty good. A lot better than before. You can see it's sort of, the outer glow helps, and then the drop shadow gives it some space against the wall. That's not too bad, right? And that's it. That's all you need to do. Both of those are in multiply mode, by the way, in blend mode. And I'm going to click OK and commit to that. Okay, the one thing we didn't get to do in class, because everybody seems to sort of get lost, but we can try it here, is let's make this inside recessed a bit. Let's have it set back an inch or two. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my front layer here. I'm going to turn my flange off and everything and just work completely on the front layer. All right, so I'm going to turn the front layer on, and I'm actually going to double it. Command J, so now I have two layers. I have front copy and front. And I'm going to change that front copy to something called inset, just so we know what that is. So we're going to push this back inside, but we got to darken it up a little bit first. So let's darken this new one we made, and I'm going to lock the transparency. That's right there, that little guy. It says right next to lock. And basically what that is telling Photoshop now is I can't paint on this layer anywhere but inside this letter S. And in this case, I'm going to just make the letter S darker. I need it to be pretty dark. So let's go close to the bottom here. Really dark one. Okay, there it is. Not too bad, right? I got a dark one. And if I just hit, and since it's my foreground color now, if I just hit Alt-Delete, it will color it. And it's only coloring inside the S because of the transparency lock that's on it. So not too bad. So there's my front one. There's the inset one. There's the one we originally did behind it, okay? But see, I want this to recess a little bit. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use our front as a clipping mask. And it's going to hide a portion of this inset. And here's how that works. So with my inset selected, I'm going to hover my mouse between those two layers and hold down my Alt key. And there you see the clipping mask icon. So if you hold down your Alt key, you'll get that, and then just click with your mouse, and there you go. And it's clipped to the one below it. Now they're both lined up, so it's not clipping really anything yet. But if I go to my my inset layer, and I'm just going to move it with my move tool just a little bit down, and like this, you can see it. The other layer below is clipping it. And that gives me this nice little inset reveal. And if I turn on all the other layers now, you sort of see how that kind of works. It looks like this, it looks like it's inset an inch or two. And that's kind of cool. It gives it a little bit more volume, makes it look a little bit more realistic. Now you can go back to that front layer again, and you can dodge and burn that and do the highlights. So in this case, on the front layer now, because most of it's being hidden by that inset layer we built, on that front layer you can go in here now and dodge and burn that a little bit, and dodge that a little bit, because that's going to be in shadow. This is kind of going to be in shadow a bit. Maybe this is in shadow just a bit. And then I'll go to my dodge tool, and I'll dodge that a little bit so you can sort of see it, and maybe there's some downlighting happening. And there you go. And now it's nice and inset. It looks kind of cool. One final thing I could potentially do with this to sort of even help sell this some more, two more things really. On that inset layer, if I put a pattern on that, and you don't have to do this, but let's just say you wanted to. I have this kind of funky Spider-Man pattern. It's almost like a metal grate. And if I put a pattern on that layer, let me do that again. I'm going to double click that inset layer. This is how I did it. So double click, I get the layer styles dialog box, pattern, and whatever pattern you want to use. In this case, I'm going to use my sort of Spider-Man texture. And I have the opacity set pretty low on it. And there you go. Now you can see it looks like a piece of metal, like a fabricated, punched piece of metal, and that kind of helps sell the whole thing too. It's just another way you could sell something like this. And it doesn't look too bad. It actually looks pretty convincing. One final thing I'm going to do though, and I did do this in class, I am going to put, at the very top, I'm going to put a brand new layer, and I'm going to celebrate the light. Say there's a window off camera that we can't see. I'm going to help celebrate this light that we honestly can't see. So I'm just going to use my polygonal lasso tool, and I'm going to make a triangle off the canvas altogether right here. All right, got to close it. There we go. And I'm going to fill it with black. I'm going to make sure I reset my colors to letter D. And I'm going to do, since black is my foreground color, Alt Delete will fill that. All right, deselect, and I'm going to do another one. I'm going to do another one right here off the canvas. Close that, and I'm also going to fill that with black. Alt Delete. And there you go. Now I can't see anything, but if I turn this opacity down, it looks like maybe there's a window up there shining down. And I might blur it a little bit just to give it some blur, filter, blur, Gaussian blur. And, ooh, that's too much. Let's maybe keep it at 5-ish. Ooh, that feels like it might be a little bit much too. 4. 5 wasn't too bad. 5 gives a nice soft edge on those shadows, right? And there you go. So now I have that. It's at 48. I may turn it up just a little bit to help that out. All right, there you go. Well, actually, one final thing I may even do is I may even put a lens flare on it. And maybe I'll set my color to white. My foreground color to white. That's a little bit much, but size this brush down a little bit. Where the sun's hitting it, maybe right there, there's a little lens flare. That's kind of cool. And maybe I'll just put one down there as well. All right, everybody, there you go. That's kind of how we made this in class. Pretty simple. It's more of an exercise on how to organize your work. I hope you enjoyed watching. Have a good day, and practice, practice, practice. Have a good one.